Okay, so today we're going to continue on with this script that we started on last time. And so if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check out the last video, and I'll have a link for that in the description. But what we want to do is take this multi-floor building that we have with this outside overall form, and we want to create like an outside skin with either like a storefront look or something like that, so we can copy that segment up a series of times, the same number of floors. So let's go ahead and start by disabling the preview here. Now what we're going to do is take this bottom polyline, which is our base geometry, and extrude it up to this bottom point to create our initial first segment. So let's go ahead and extrude. And we're going to extrude the same amount as the floor height. So let's go in the Z direction. If we're going vertical, let's plug in our polygon, which is our base. And we're going to plug in our height, floor to floor height. And this will give us our initial form. Now, what we can do is, if you can see here on floor to floor, the more we increase the floor, this will go with it because it's tied to it. So let's continue on with this one. Now that we have that, let's actually go ahead and create the first outside form. And so the first outside form is going to be a mullion down here. So we're going to take this polygon and we're going to offset it. And it's offsetting out, which is good. Now let's plug in the distance. So I'll go 2.5. And this gives us a good distance. So let's go ahead and do a boundary surface. Plug this and this into it. But the important thing is that we flatten it so it actually creates the surface in between those two. Great. So that's the beginning of a mullion, or part of the trim of the window. And let's go ahead and take that and extrude it. So extrude this surface in the Z direction. And this is going to be our frame size. So let's go to a 3.5. And this becomes part of our structure, right? Because we can copy this up to the top and up to a certain height to create a frame. So let's do that. Let's take this, which is our bottom part of the frame, and let's move it in the Z direction. Actually, I don't have to use a Z vector because I'm going to use the same as this. So let's go ahead and plug this into it and use the same Z vector of 15 times 12, 180. And this gives us this top copy here. So once we have that, we can go ahead and create another one, maybe a little bit lower, like at 8 or 9 feet. So we'll take this and copy it over. So now this one, I will plug in a Z vector that is custom. So let's go here to a Z vector. And I'll type in, let's see, 120 for 10 feet. And I'll plug this into the Z vector. So this allows me to pick another one up here, and that starts giving us the look on the outside that we're trying to go for now. I know that we still have subdivisions that we're trying to deal with here, but overall this creates a frame for the first floor, which becomes a module to kind of array vertically. So for this next portion, we're going to take these corner lines, and we actually have to create them first and then extrude them out the same amount as the offset. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's take our polygon, and there's a component called discontinuity. And what it does is any discontinuity in a line, it creates a point or a vertice. So let's go ahead and bring in the polygon here. Whoops. We'll bring in the polygon, and here we have all those points. Now we're going to take those points and move them up. So let's go ahead and move them vertically. And the reason why I want to move them up is to create that line. So we're going to move it up the same amount as the floor height using 15. Now we can create a line from point A to point B. From start point to end point. Now we can take that and we can pick a direction. Now we need to extrude these all out, not in the same direction, but out from the center. So how do we do that? We're going to create a line, and we're going to bring in an area component. The area component is going to give us the exact center of that by plugging in our polygon, giving us our center. We're going to create a line from our center point to our discontinuity here, creating the direction. So this is going to be the direction in which these lines are going to be extruded. So let's go ahead and bring in our extrude component. And we're going to extrude these lines. In which direction? In this direction. Now, we can plug this in and it'll give it to us that same length, or we can do amplitude and pick a smaller amount. So what's a smaller amount? The same as our offset. So no matter how big our offset is for our bottom base, this will always come a little bit less than that. Why? Because we're also going to extrude this in both directions. So here's the thing. Once we have these, which is good, we want to extrude them in both directions. Now, what I don't like to do is extrude in the positive and negative and then put it together. I like to actually move it in one direction and extrude it twice as much. So this is the trick that I like to use. I haven't seen anyone else use this one, but I'm sure that a lot of people have used it before. So the trick is going to be to move the surface in which direction? Well, we'll bring in the amplitude, which will allow us to go perpendicular to that face. So technically I just moved the original plane a unit of 1 this way. So let's go ahead and go 1.5, and you see that we can increase or decrease this. So let's leave it at 1.5. Now what we're going to do is take this and extrude it in the negative direction 1.5 times 2. So let's go ahead and take this, type in extrude component, and we'll extrude this surface. In which direction? Well, in this direction. Or in this direction, same thing. You can use either one of those. And the amplitude is going to be times 2. So 1.5 times 2. And this will extrude twice as much in the wrong way, you'll see. So you see how it extruded out that way? Well, I wanted to go the opposite way. So this is where we bring in our negative component. And we can go like this, like so. So technically what we did is we took this extrusion, we moved it out here, and we extruded it twice as much in the negative direction, giving us a single member here. Now you see how it doesn't protrude more? That's good. That's what we want to see. So let's bring all of this and disable the preview, giving us our really clean first floor frame. Now, what we can do is come back here and play around with our parameters. The further we go out, at some point we intersect with that. So let's go ahead and pick a good one that fits within it. So let's just continue with 1.5. I think that's good. Now, technically we can take this and this, which are our frames, and we can put them together using Boolean union. Now, it's not necessary that we do that right now, but we could. And what's cool is that we also have that bottom surface, so we can create like a pattern on it if we want to. So let's actually go ahead and do that. Let's bring in a union component, solid union. We're going to plug this one in. We're going to plug this one in. Those don't touch yet, so now we can take these, disable preview, and then this one. Now, if you look here, it's going to say, let's see here, 9 values, which makes sense. We'll go here, flatten, and it should give you one closed B-rep. And when you come closer here, you should be able to see everything really clean and accurate. Cool. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and array this vertically. So we're going to do the same thing that we did with the floors, which was create a series, right? So we have this series of floors moved up. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to move the same amount, which is a series of times in the vertical direction. And what are we going to move? We're going to move all of this information. Now, if you don't want the top one, that's where we can actually subtract 1 from the count. So just using the series, we have that ability to do that. So let's actually copy this, plug it into there, and let's subtract 1 count. So let's do this, number of floors minus 1. 6 minus 1 giving us 5. And this is what we will plug into the count. So now, no matter how many floors we have, this always remains constant, the count of 6, or 1 less than the entire amount of floors. Now, we didn't bring in our surface, which we can. We can just take this, plug it into our geometry. We can see, actually this will be a graph. And now you have basically arrayed that vertically. And we can disable the preview on all of this stuff. And so we've successfully kind of created the outside frame, this glass panel, and the floors. The thing is, when you move it up with one component, it's hard to take apart the surface and the frames. So this is where I actually make a copy here. And actually, let me do this. Let me disconnect the extrude portion and just make a copy here. And on the top one, for geometry, I will plug in that surface. So I do it individually, so then I can come here at the end and with a custom preview, I can easily, with a color swatch here, create the frame. And then for this one, copy it up here and create the glass. And so I will stop here. I am going to kind of clean this up right now and show you in a time lapse, but if you have any questions, let me know. Next time I'll go into creating like a pattern here on the glass facade. So you can have like, not just, you know, a typical storefront, but you could have more of a dynamic pattern. You could even use curve attractors and things like that. So we can get into that a little bit later, but I think at this point, this should be enough to kind of move the project along. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.